Thank you for standing by and welcome to today's Tivoli User Community Webcast. Our topic for today is the right information to the right people at the right time. All phone lines are currently in a listen-only mode, and later there will be a question and answer session with instructions being given at that time. You may also ask a question at any time using the chat window located in the control panel. Chat questions will be answered at the end of the presentation with the rest of the Q&A portion. Today's session is being recorded, and you'll be provided a copy of the materials following the call. Now I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. Jim Hewley is a sales engineer on the archive and backup management team at Rocket Software, where he's responsible for pre- and post-sales. He has 30-plus years of experience in the IT industry, with over 20 years in storage and backup. Jim has worked with Tivoli Storage Manager since 1995 and is a certified Tivoli professional. His primary area of expertise includes disaster recovery, TSM backup solutions, and storage subsystem design, implementation, and administration. Jim, go ahead and take it away.
Great. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, or whatever part of the day it is for you. And thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk a bit today about Rocket Server Graph and where it fits in the data protection space. So I'm going to get started. Just jump into this. So what we see at Server Graph, that demand for data protection compliance is now at its probably its peak that it's ever been throughout my career. Everybody wants to have reliability, in that they want 5 nines reliability because they can't afford to have backups failing and not get corrected as quickly as possible. They can no longer wait till the next morning. If a failure occurs overnight, they can't wait till the next morning to fix it or take action on it. It needs to be done immediately, because there are more and more applications that are so critical of the business that if there were a failure, they need to be able to recover that data as quickly as possible without the business seeing any kind of hiccup at all. What we see, the state of data protection is right now is typical throughout the environment. And when we talk to our customers, what we constantly hear back from them are the things that I'm going to talk about here. And it seems to resonate through everybody, or from one respect being from small environments to very large ones. The enterprise is growing, but the backup and recovery of the data protection team does not. They have too many backup products. Now they have more than one. It's very rare that we come across customers that have just one backup product. They now have multiple backup products, and each one of them has their own interface or the ability to do some report, if any reporting at all. And the end users don't want to have to make use of 3 different products to look at these backups and understand what's going on. And they need this information right there, right at their fingertips, whenever they have to go and look for it. The other thing we're seeing is that the storage footprint is growing at over 50% year over year. And they're asking, how do I handle this? How do I keep up with the growth that I'm seeing in this type of environment? So we also talk to our end users and find what kind of information they need. Everybody throughout the enterprise that we talk to has different needs. The CTO, he wants to see the numbers. He wants to understand what the cost is, why is it costing him, and how long can he wait to make that expenditure. The IT manager, he wants to know if his SLAs and his RTOs are being met, because that's the information that he needs to provide to the people that are asking him questions. Compliance officers, they have another different piece of the puzzle that they need to understand and have the information for. Are they recoverable? Are they vulnerable in any way, especially when it comes to a lawsuit? And can they show this, that they have the data there that they're going to need? And the backup administrator, he needs to know everything. He needs to be able to answer to any one of these people in the enterprise and give them the information quickly. He doesn't want to have to go through multiple reports. He wants to have that information right there at his fingertips in a single pane of glass. So let's talk about a couple of individuals throughout the enterprise and their needs. So DBAs, I've dealt with these folks in the past, and they always seem to be a very demanding group, mainly because they're managing applications that are probably very critical. And they have to stay on top of their backups as well. And sometimes, they're in the faces of the database of the backup administrators, because there's a problem happening. They need to stay on top of it as well. They're under the same type of pressure that the backup admin is, and they need to report back to their managers that they're protecting the data. So what if What if he had access to that environment, the database administrator had access to that environment directly, instead of having to go through the backup administrator and not have to interrupt him and from his daily work, and he could have that information right at his fingertips as well. Then we come to the CTO. He's the top of the chain pretty much, and he needs to know where the money's going, right? He's the one that's in charge of expenditures for his department, and every time the backup admin goes to him, he makes the backup admin justify this expenditure. He's not going to just give him money for another bunch of tape drives or more disk storage for the backups to land on. He has to account for that. And almost every time that the backup administrator goes to him, he's got to provide pretty much the same type of information. But what if we could provide what I like to call a CTO DPD, or a data protection dashboard, where the CTO doesn't even have to go and talk to the admin. He can just go log into ServerGraph or some product and say, let me see the information that I need to have to justify this expenditure. What if he had that right at his fingertips? Didn't have to go anywhere but the single dashboard and look at that same information every time he has an expenditure in the data protection space. What we're also seeing is the compliance officers have their needs. They have to be able to provide to auditing that they can recover data if there was any kind of loss. And the administrator is in the middle of this, trying to scramble to compile the proper information whenever the auditor comes along and says, hey, it's that time again, we're going to audit the environment, we need to make sure that you're compliant. A lot of times this information is not very simple. It's complex, and it's very time consuming for the admin to pull this all together. But what if the admin had this at his fingertips, because they were canned reports that, although they may be complex, a lot of times they're very similar reports. What if we could provide this for the admin right at his fingertips by the click of a button, and he could pull up those reports that the auditors are looking for and not have to go through a large complex process to pull it all together. And then we come to the operations manager. He's got a very complex set of reports that he requires also. He's got to be able to prove that he's got that success ratio of 99% or above, whatever it is that he's agreed upon to his end users. He doesn't have the time in his day to go through and wade through pages and pages of reports to make sure he's at that success rate. He wants that information right there at his fingertips. What if he could have that information in his email when he shows up every morning at his desk, and he could look through those reports while he's reading his newspaper at the side. Once he's done with that, he's having his coffee. What if he has it right there in front of him at his fingertips also? Another thing that we see when we're talking to our end users is that due to acquisitions or just internal growth, the environments are growing and they're supporting more and more backup products. Folks are finding that one backup product usually doesn't solve all of their problems, or because their company has acquired another company, that they're entrenched in another backup product than what they already have. So these backup admins don't have the time or the ability to try and learn how each one of these reports, or once each one of these products has their own reporting capabilities. Maybe they've acquired some VTLs, or maybe the company that they've acquired has a different type of ticketing system. What these admins want is to have everything at their fingertips under a single pane of glass and not have to review 7 different reporting tools. She wants to have quick access to the high-level reports, but also have the ability to drill down into those reports and understand and find where the problems are. She wants that quickly and not having to bounce from one product to another to see where this information is. So let's talk about Rocket ServerGraph Professional. So what is ServerGraph Professional? It's reporting, it's alerting, and it's a whole lot more than that. It's an enterprise solution that we have developed over years to make everybody in the data protection space's job a lot more easy, to provide them that information in a single pane of glass, simple, and can get to it quickly. It has a very complex, or not complex, but expansive alerting capability. So it can send you information when there's an occurrence or an anomaly quickly, and it can send you in multiple ways. It could send you a text, it could send it to you in an email or tweet if you wanted it that way, or even open a trouble ticket. And it has an interface to all of the enterprise class trouble ticket systems. We like to say it gets the right information to the right people in a very concise manner. The product also provides predictive analysis to allow you to get ready for situations ahead of time. So instead of having to scramble at the last minute when your primary disk pool is running out of space, we're going to provide reports that allow you to predict when that capacity is going to be reached so that you can put an order in and have that disk space ready to go before you actually need it, or you can plan for these happenings in the environment. Allows you to be more keep your CTO happier because now he's not having to struggle to find money in the budget. You're already budgeting for it because you know from the reports that we provide when you're going to run out of space. So what makes up ServerGraph? There's a couple of different components to it where we can pull information from all of the pieces in the enterprise. We can pull information from multiple backup products. We pull it from the targets as well as the servers themselves, and we can serve it up in many different manners. We can provide dashboards. We can provide access through our GUI interface for the admin. We can send out reports via, as I said, text or email, and we can present them up to different groups of folks in many different ways. We can also take that data and compartmentalize it. So maybe the HR team wants to see how their backups are doing, so we can set up a scope, what we call a scope, so that the HR folks can go in but only see their little piece of the world. We can do the same we can create our scopes in many different ways across applications. We can carve them up across operating systems, or we can carve them up over physical locations, whereby each of the folks in those locations or applications can look at the data themselves and just see what you allow them to see. Moving on, let's talk a little bit about the architecture that ServerGraph is built on. So this is what we like to call the big picture. So inside ServerGraph, you have a Unix platform that the code runs on. And that code goes out to each of the components of the data protection space and collects the data and pulls it back and populates our MySQL database. There are no agents that have to get pushed out to any other component in the data protection space. It runs on that single Unix platform. And as you can see, we encompass quite a few of the components of the backup products. As I said, we started our the development of the tool just in the TSM space, but realized that our end users wanted us to be able to bring that same expertise that we had in TSM across many of the backup products. So we now support Fastback, Commvault, NetBackup, Networker, all of the enterprise class backup products, as well as the targets that they write to. We can query data from the IBM's VTL to protect here, EMC's data domain, and a few other VTLs that are out there. We can also now query the RMAN backup product as well. We can go out and interrogate the RMAN catalog and pull that information the same way we do all of the other backup products. As I said, we bring that in, and we have another very powerful product under the covers that allows you to take that data and massage it into reports. Now, out of the box, there are a bunch of reports I'll talk about in the slide, but you can then take those reports or build reports on your own, or you could take our existing reports and massage them into exactly what you want them to be. And we make that very simple so that our end users can get the exact data that they want. Sometimes they find that we provide too much information. They might want to whittle that down to make the report even more simple, and other times they might find that they want to add something to it. And we make it very simple by providing not just one report builder tool, but we have two. We developed one over the years, and by listening to our end users, they said some folks found it very complex. So we created an even more basic report builder that just allows you to do a drag and drop or a pull down window and select the data that you want to report on, and then it allows you to format it and create reports, whether they be tabular reports or graphs. It becomes very simple with either one of our report builder engines. We can also interface with enterprise scheduling products because sometimes folks are not using the backup products themselves to schedule the backup job. So if we're in an enterprise that's using any one of these schedulers, we can go out and interrogate that also to understand and make sure we're monitoring how those backup or those jobs are getting sent from either like an AutoSys or a Control M or a Tivoli workload schedule, we can interrogate that and make sure that those things are being followed to the end and reporting on them. So what we also have are the key components to server graph. So some of the best things that we can do are provide dashboards. As I said earlier, maybe the CTO wants a dashboard to see just the reports that he wants to see. And then that operations manager may not want it in an email. Maybe he wants his report in a dashboard as well. So he can go out and click on one button that brings him to a web interface that he can look at every one of his reports that he's ever wanted to see, or he can have the email sent to him as well. I talked a little bit about our reports builder. As I said, we have 2 of them. Very flexible. If they've coded anything with SQL, they can go in and use our report builder to massage reports and make them their own. I talked about our scopes capability, which allows you to filter the data for specific users. And that's a very powerful component of the product as well, because it allows the backup administrator to be freed up and give the end users direct access to the product, but only give them access to what you want them to see. Alerting, we also have that capability. So you can set up things within Server Graph that allow you to look at certain components. We have a heartbeat monitor that goes out and monitors each one of the components to make sure they're up and running, that we're touching on the data protection space. And last on that list is we also have a full-blown TSM administration interface. So it's a GUI that allows you to manage and set up backups, and do anything that needs to be done administrative-wise in the TSM space. So let's look at some of the samples, some of the things that I touched on. One I like to talk about is the server monitor heat map. And what this does at a very high level, it looks at each one of the components that we're monitoring in the data protection space and sets a color on it. So this can be very helpful for a network operations center, or maybe when the data protection administrator first comes in the morning, he can take a look at this heat map and quickly see what needs to be addressed by the color coding. If it's red, that means there's a severe problem, and someone needs to take a look at that immediately. And chances are, if it's red, he's already gotten an alert. Well, we've already set up an alert and sent him some sort of information that tells him exactly what's going on, why that's turned red. And inside the product, if you mouse over or click on the component that's red, we'll give you additional detail on that as well. So you can go directly to that and find out what's causing it to turn red, or what's causing the alert to be sent. If it's yellow, that means there's some kind of minor problem, not as severe as the red color. Has to get take a look at as well, and green means everything is well and good on what we're monitoring on that component of the backup product. The next report is a historical backup summary. So we have end users that are keeping usually anywhere from 30 days to some of them are keeping even 2 years worth of data on the data protection space, so they can easily go back and look at what's gone on and look at trending, and they can manipulate each one of these reports. So as you see on the right, we have only a couple of the check boxes checked off. So this report is tweaked down to just show what the end user wants to see. Maybe they don't care about backups that are completed, but maybe they want to drill down into the missed, the failed, and the missed file spaces. So in this report, very simply check off those boxes. You can even stretch it out if you wanted to see more than 30 days, less than 30 days. We give you that ability to take this report and make it exactly what you wanted to see. If you wanted it in a tabular report, on most of our reports, you can click on a button that changes it to a tabular report, and you can take that data and export it to Excel if you wanted to manipulate it even further. Long-term trending, this is one of the ones that I find our end users are constantly asked for. When there's a problem in the environment, or when they're trying to make sure they're not going to run out of space or CPU cycles on the server that's backing up, this is a great place for them to come and get the big picture. On this particular graph, or we're looking at storage. We're looking at from different pieces of the storage infrastructure inside the backup space, and trying to look at that and give them a nice picture across every one of the components so they can see what's being utilized over a specific time frame. Now, it's kind of cut off on this one a little bit, but you can stretch this out to the maximum number of days, and this one on the upper left-hand side, it says it's going to look at 300 days worth, so almost a year's worth of data can easily be displayed here, or you can show 7 days, 1 day, 3 days, and you can take it and make it point-in-time snapshots as well by changing the end date of it, which is on the right-hand side there also. So if you wanted to take a snapshot of a month ago, we can show you that as well. And then there's a bunch of different pull-downs in this long-term trending report where you can look at different components. We're pulling very detailed stats from the Unix platforms that the backup products can run on. So we can give you a nice picture performance-wise. If you're trying to troubleshoot a performance problem, we have the ability to drill down into that as well. Look at a bunch of different components in one single pane of glass to show you and help you try to pinpoint that performance bottleneck. Next, we show some of the same information for net backup, and this one happens to be looking at just backups over a 15-day period that ended June 4th. So again, if you look at the upper right-hand side, you can change this by clicking on the pull-down and change it to the number of days that you want, and you can also change the end date so you can get that nice little snapshot. And this one happens to look at a bunch of different things that are related to net backup data. So I can look at my successful jobs to understand, am I meeting my SLAs there? Are there partially successful jobs that are occurring? That's the second chart down. I can look at fails. I can start to look at trending them. Do I have a lot of different session sizes, or are they staying pretty constant? And what are my session rates? How much am I backing up? What's the throughput numbers? Tons and tons of information that can help you stay on top of what's going on in the backup specific to the net backup side of what you have there. Another one that our end users seem to like are the overall backup status, in a chart. And this one happens to be one that we've sent out in an email, not one that you would go and look at from a dashboard, but you'd have it in your inbox, or you can send it out to groups. You can massage this down to maybe you have a physical location in New York, Los Angeles, Louisiana, and you strip it out. Each one of those sites wants to see what their backups look like and how many are backed up in the last 24 hours and what their success rate was. So we can give them a verbal summary at the top, and then in the bottom side of it we can give them a graphical look at what's gone on in that time space as well. And another one of an email status, this one happens to be by a node group, which we now call scope, and it can break it out by different lines of business. This one happens to be, we show each one of the scopes and what backups fall into each one of the categories for the last 24 hours. So to the left you see AIX as an application, then we break it out by Lotus Notes, a couple in there that look Unix, what's going on a Steve test environment or another UL test environment. So we can carve this information up however our end users want to see that and make it useful to them in that way. We also have another one that some of our end users, one of my colleagues created this report for an end user that what they really cared about is, the last 4 days. Sometimes in what we see by talking to our end users that it's not as important if a backup failed 1 day, but if it's failed multiple days, that's when they really need to get on top of it. Chances are the 1 day, it's maybe, unless it's a very critical application, as long as you get the backup done in the next day, everything's okay. So we created this graph and send it out to them via an email on what's happened in the last 4 days. So they can quickly see in the green boxes there that a couple of the backup clients have been successfully backing up, and then there's a few that have also failed every one of those days, and somebody is going to have to take a look at that as quick as possible to make sure there's a valid reason for that. And that's pretty much it as far as I have today for the presentation. I'd like to thank everybody again for taking the time to sit through it. I hope it was useful. I'm sorry, I'm missing a slide there. Let me go back to that. So I'm leaving up some of my contact information. If anyone would like additional information on the ServerGraph product, you can contact me via my phone numbers that are up there, or email me, and we could set up a demo, or if somebody would just like to get into a demo box and kick the tires, we can set that up as well. And I think we also have set aside some time for question and answers if anyone has any.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Jim. If you would like to ask a question, you can do so using the chat window located in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Some questions are coming in now. Jim, how difficult is Server Graph to install?
Oh, that's a great question. So it's very simple. On the Unix platforms, you pretty much type in install and you answer a few questions, and the install, it's a typical, install. We answer the questions and it runs and pretty much does it itself, and it's done in a few minutes. And then each one of the components that we're going to collect data from takes about 5 to 10 minutes. So I would say an average install is usually about an hour or less.
Excellent. Can it run on a Windows platform?
So that's another good question, and technically I cannot, but we also have a cloud offering where if folks don't want to stand up a Unix box, or they don't have any expertise in doing that, we offer a couple of solutions there. So we can install a snippet of code that would run on a Windows box and collect that data and push it out to our cloud, and then we can serve it back to our end users from the cloud. So it does not get installed. The code really doesn't install on Windows. It runs only on a Unix platform, but we have a solution for that.
Okay. Would someone be able to get reports from TSM version 5 servers?
So yes, that's another great advantage to the ServerGraph product, is that although IBM will be dropping support, or has dropped support for version 5, we'll continue to not only report on it, but we can also administrate it as well from our interface.
Great. What is the firewall requirements from ServerGraph to the managed systems?
So we need a specific port, or actually we need a port open to be able to go out there. And with TSM, we do it in a number of ways. With most of the other components, it's like an SSH typical port that we need open to go to the box, run commands, and pull the data back. So
Great.
it's very minimal.
Cool. This is kind of a multi-part one. How does ServerGraph distinguish DB backup and log archive jobs? Can they be reported on success fail separately? In this particular environment, they share the same TSM node name, but use different management classes.
So yeah, we do get that granular. We can distinguish the type of data that's getting backed up, and if they have different management classes, we can also drill down into that and show the differences on that as well. So we show that in some CAN reports, and we can also create custom reports that it would easily distinguish between the two of those.
Awesome. Is Linux supported, or what Unix distributions are supported?
Great question. I should have gotten more detail. So yes, Red Hat Linux is supported. CentOS. So is Red Hat, CentOS. I'm missing one. SUSE is also supported, as well as AIX. So we try to cover the whole gamut there. We want to make it very simple for end users. Whatever operating system they have, we want to be able to run on it, as long as it's Unix.
Great. Those are all the questions we've had that have come through so far. Does anyone else have any other questions for Jim? Grilled them pretty good so far. All right. Well, if anyone does have any additional questions, Jim does have his contact information up there, and I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any additional ones that you can think of. But it looks like we've run through the course of questions. So Jim, thank you again very much for your time and for the presentation.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate everyone's time.
Absolutely. And thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for attending. Do take a few minutes to take our post-event survey. We take everyone's feedback very seriously and implement that in all of our future events. But at this point, this concludes today's conference, and you may now disconnect.
What? I'm done.